All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Trial, 1962. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I love this flick. If you're into Dada surrealism, this movie is for you. I love how Anthony Perkins always plays a completely deranged person. And this movie is no exception. I don't think I've ever seen a bad Anthony Perkins movie in my life. Perkins Wells, Le Procès. I guess that's the French theatrical release poster. Very cool looking poster. The Trial, French. Les Procès is a 1962 drama film written and directed by Orson Welles based on the 1925 posthumously published novel of the same name by Franz Kafka. Wells stated immediately after completing the film, "The Trial is the best film I have ever made." The film begins with Wells' narrative narrating Kafka's parable Before the Law to pin screen scenes created by the artists Alexandre Alexiev and Claire Parker. Anthony Perkins stars as Joseph K., a bureaucrat who is accused of never specified crime, and Jeanne Moreau, Ronnie Schneider, and Elsa Martinelli play women who become involved in various ways in Joseph's trial and life. Wells plays the advocate, Joseph's lawyer, and the film's principal antagonist. The Trial has grown in reputation over the years, and some critics, including Roger Ebert, have called it a masterpiece. It is often praised for its scenic design and cinematography, the latter of which includes disoriented camera angles and unconventional use of focus. So the reason to watch this is Anthony Perkins, the cinematography, the Dada surrealism aspect. Everything is just perfect. Even the white women in this are good looking, but unfortunately, none of them take off their clothes. Nonetheless, you don't always need nudity in film to enjoy it. This is a prime case of that. And it's a 1962 film, so you can't really expect much, even though it was shown quite a bit. Oh, it was a France, Italy, West Germany co-production, I think. Or maybe that's where it was filmed. Uh, it was certainly distributed in France, West Germany, and Italy. So it's one of those European art house films for sure. But it sure beats watching Federico Fellini, one of his 70s or 80s works. Even the 60s, Fellini is kind of hit or miss. But this film is a hit. Joseph K. is sleeping in his bedroom in an apartment he shares with other lodgers. He is awakened when a man in a suit opens his bedroom door. Joseph assumes the glib man is a policeman, but the intruder does not identify himself, and he ignores Joseph's demand to produce police ID. Oh, sort of like ICE nowadays. Several detectives enter, and they tell Joseph he is under open arrest, whatever that is. In another room, Joseph sees Three co-workers from his place of employment, they were to provide evidence regarding some unstated crime. The police refused to inform Joseph K. of his misdeeds or if he's even being charged with a crime, and they do not take him into custody. And his coworkers are in this three-piece suit playing around with his girlfriend, border roommate, burlesque dancer. They're playing around with her photos of her mother. I'm not sure what this has to do with the open crime, whatever the heck is going on. It's this movie is nuts. After the detective leave, after the detectives leaves, after the detectives leave, Joseph converses with his landlady, Mrs. Gruback, and neighbor, Miss Burstner, about the strange visit. Later, he goes to his office, where his supervisor thinks he has been having improper relations with his teenage female cousin. She's like 15. That night, Joseph attends the opera, but he is abducted from the theater by a police inspector, and he's taken to a courtroom where he attempts in vain to confront the still unstated case against him. Oh man! And this is like the halfway point. This movie goes on for 2 hours. Unbelievable. I wanted it to last 5 hours because it's so crazy, and it's like a dream sequence. And the cinematography is just awesome. I, I don't know who did the cinematography, but it is just top notch. It's frantic and crazy. Joseph returns to his office. Joseph discovers the two police officers who first visited him being whipped in a small room. Another crazy scene. That's probably the highlight right there. Joseph's uncle, Max, suggests that Joseph consult with Hassler, a law advocate, after brief encounters with the wife of a courtroom guard and a room full of condemned men awaiting trial. Joseph is granted an interview with Hassler, which proves unsatisfactory. He's like, it's Orson Welles lying in a bed with a wet, steamy towel on his face. Hassler's mistress suggests that Joseph seek the advice of artist Titorelli, but this also proves unhelpful. Seeking refuge in a cathedral, Joseph very briefly discusses his case with the priest. Hassler abruptly appears at the cathedral to confirm the priest's assertion. On the evening before his 31st birthday, Joseph is apprehended by two executioners, and he is taken to a quarry pit where he is ordered to remove some of his clothing. The executioners pass a knife back and forth, apparently deliberating on who will do the deed before handing the knife to the condemned man who refuses to commit suicide. The executioners leave Joseph in the quarry pit and they toss dynamite in the pit. Joseph laughs at his executioners. Joseph picks up the dynamite. And the ending is just completely inexplicable. I don't know. It's just an explosion. And that's it. Sorry to spoil it, but there's not much of an ending. It's just an explosion. In 1960, Wells was approached by producer Alexander Salkind to make a film from public domain literary work. Salkind had originally wanted Wells to make a film of Nikolai Gogol's novella Taras Bulba. When Salkind found out that the producer, Harold Heck, was already making a version of Taras Bulba with Yul Brynner in the lead, he offered Wells a list of 82 other films to choose from. From that selection, Wells decided The Trial would be the most feasible film to make. Earlier that year, Michael Lindsay Hogg, who may have been Wells' son, had casually mentioned an idea to Wells about adopting The Trial as a stage play, prompting Wells to state that The Trial was an important book and that Wells should reread it. Salkind promised that Wells would have total artistic freedom and he would not interfere with Wells' creation. They later discovered that the book was not yet in the public domain and that they needed to obtain the rights to the property. Oops. Salkind committed 650 million French francs or 1.3 million US dollars in 1962 currency to budget for The Trial, and he secured backing from West German, French, and Italian investors. So I was right. It was produced by Europeans. Wells took 6 months to write the screenplay. In adopting the work, he rearranged the order of Kafka's chapters. In this version, the chapter lineup read 1, 4, 2, 5, 6, 3, 8, 7, 9, 10. However, the order of Kafka's chapters was arranged by the literary executor Max Brod after the writer's death, and this order is not definitive. Wells also modernized several aspects of the story, introducing computer technology and changing Miss Brusner's profession from a typist to a cabaret performer. Cabaret, I said something else. She's actually a cabaret performer, whatever that means. All right. Wells also opened the film with the table from the book about a man who was permanently detained from seeking access to the law by a guard. To illustrate this allegory, he used the pin screen animation of Alexandre Alexiev and Claire Parker, who created animated prints using thousands of pins. Wells also changed the manner of Joseph K.'s death. Kafka originally had the executioners pass the knife over the head of Joseph K., thus giving him the opportunity to take the weapon and kill himself. In a more dignified manner, Joseph K. does not. Instead, he is fatally stabbed by his executioners in the heart. As he dies, Joseph K. says, like a dog in the film, whilst the executioners still offer him the knife, Joseph K. refuses to take it. And Joseph K. goads the executioners by yelling, "You'll have to do it." The film ends with the smoke of the fatal dynamite blast forming a mushroom cloud in the air while Wells reads the closing credits on the soundtrack. Another notable change is that of Joseph's relationships with the numerous women in the film. Although Joseph seems to be interested in Miss Brusner, his later interactions with Hilda and Lenny are dispassionate and awkward. In the film, Joseph shows little romantic attention to Lenny, and she often touches him sexually without him asking her to. Henry Joglum, a friend of Wells, claimed that Wells confided in him, saying he knew Perkins was gay and used that quality in Perkins to suggest another texture in Joseph K., a fear of exposure. The whole homosexual thing using Perkins that way was incredible for that time. It was intentional on Orson's part. He had these three gorgeous women, Jeanne Moreau, Romy Schneider, Elsa Martinelli, trying to seduce this guy who was completely repressed and incapable of responding. Joglin went on to say the closetness of Perkins' homosexuality, he thought that brought a whole wonderful subtext. I remember him saying that they never talked about it, but he felt that Perkins definitely knew what he was doing. Film critic Roger Ebert theorized that this could be interpreted as a nightmare in which women make demands Joseph K. is uninterested in meeting. This had led some to believe that the trial might have gay overtones, undertones, I should say. So we've got the case of art imitating true life, I guess. Namely, Anthony Perkins being repressed by gay thoughts while women are coming onto him. Wells initially hoped to cast U.S. comic actor Jackie Gleason as Hatzler, but he took the role himself when Gleason rejected the part. Wells also dubbed the dialogue for 11 actors in the trial. Wells reportedly dubbed a few lines of Anthony Perkins' dialogue. Wells changed Perkins to identify the dubbing. Wells challenged Perkins to identify the dubbing. Perkins was unable to locate the lines where Wells dubbed his voice. British actor Peter Sallis was brought in to dub Max Hofer's dialogue, which had been delivered in Hungarian into U.S. accented English. Wells began the production in Yugoslavia. To create Joseph K.'s workplace, he created a set and exposition hall outside Zagreb where 850 secretaries banged typewriters at 850 office desks. Other sequences were later shot in Dubrovnik, Rome, Milan, and Paris. Wells was not able to film the trial in Kafka's home city of Prague, as his work was seen as decadent by the communist government in Czechoslovakia. I guess that's a good thing. In Paris, Wells planned to shoot the interiors of the film at the Boulogne Studios, but Salkind had difficulties collecting promised capital to finance the film. Instead, he used the Gare d'Orsay, an abandoned Parisian railway station. Wells rearranged his set design to accommodate this new setting, and he later defended his decision to film at Gare d'Orsay in an interview with Cahiers du Cinema, where he stated everything was improvised at the last moment because the whole physical concept of my film was quite different. It was based on the absence of sets, and the gigantic nature of sets, which people have objected to, is partly due to the fact that the only setting I had was that old abandoned station. Wells edited the trial in Paris, where while technically on vacation, he commuted in on weekends from Malaga, Spain, where he was taking time to film sequences reported as being the prologue and epilogue for his self-financed film adoption of Don Quixote to oversee the post-production work. In a later interview with Peter Bogdanovich, Anthony Perkins stated that Wells gave him the direction that the trial was meant to be seen as a black comedy. Perkins would also state his greatest professional pride came in being the star of Wells' directed picture. While filming in Zagreb, Wells met 21-year-old Croatian actress Olga Palinkas. He renamed her Oja Kodar, and she became Wells' companion and occasional artistic collaborator during the latter years of his career. Wells initially planned to premiere the trial at the Venice Film Festival in September 1962, but the film was not completed in time. The festival organizers showed the Academy Award winning musical West Side Story instead. A very boring movie. I think my I think my eighth grade teacher made me force me to watch that. It was awful. Well, he must have been drunk. Anyways, Wells continued to edit the film up until its December 1962 premiere in Paris. In an interview with the BBC, he mentioned that on the eve of the premiere, he jettisoned a 10-minute sequence. It is actually about 6 minutes long, where Joseph K. meets with the computer scientist played by Greek actress Katrina Paxino, who uses her technology to predict his fate. Wells explained the last minute cut by noting, I only saw the film as a whole once. We were still in the process of doing the mixing, and then the premiere fell on us. The scene would have been best in the film, and it wasn't something went wrong. I don't know why, but it didn't succeed. Ultimately, the U.S. theatrical release of the trial came in 1963. The film earned $1,403,700 in North America, the UK, and the British Commonwealth. It did not make a profit. The trial polarized critics upon release. Immediately after its completion, Wells said, say what you like, but the trial is the best film I have ever made. The film was reacted to more positively in France, where it won the Best Film Award of the French Syndicate of Cinema Critics in 1963. So this film is for uppity, conceited European intellectuals. It's not for stupid entertainment for the sake of entertainment types in the US. And that goes for 1962 as well as today. Charles Hegram's 1970 biography of Wells dismissed the film as an agonizing experience, a dead thing, like some tablet found among dust of forgotten men, speaking a language that has much to say to us, but whose words have largely been rubbed away. We like an agonizing experience when watching films like this. It's definitely one of those so bad that it's good type films. And I think when Wells is saying it's the best film he ever made, I think he's talking about the acting and the cinematography and the inane dialogue. Not necessarily as a bad thing, but actually a good thing. The film has continued to polarize film critics and scholars. Like I said, nothing has changed since 1962. Yet while it still has its detractors, contemporary analysis is far more positive. In his 1996 biography of Wells, David Thompson said the film was an astonishing work and a revelation of the man, a stunning film. Today, the film enjoys enthusiastic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Whopping 84% of 44 critical reviews awarded the film a positive review with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. Film critic Roger Ebert called the film an exuberant use of camera placement and movement and innovative lighting, awarding it a full 4 stars. Film critic Leonard Maltin gave the trial a rating of 3.5 out of 4 stars, and he described it as a gripping, if a bit confusing, and not for all taste. Yeah, if you don't like European art house films, stay away from this. While film critic Pauline Kael writes that the film was somewhat of a light plot set, while it embodied the dissolving and montage of light. In the British Film Institute's 2002 Sight and Sound poll, Argentine film critic and historian Fernando Martin Pena voted the trial one of his 10 favorite films. I wouldn't put it in my top 10, but maybe top 50. I'm not sure. Top 100 maybe, but top 10, that's a little bit extreme. Fernando Martin Pena. In 1981, Wells planned to create a documentary on the making of the trial. Cinematographer Gary Graver was hired to film Wells addressing a University of Southern California audience on the film's history. The footage was shot with a 16 millimeter camera on color reversal stock, but Wells never completed the proposed documentary. The footage is now in the possession of Germany's Film Museum Munich and has since been restored. No copyright was ever filed on the trial, which resulted in the film being a public domain title in the US, although it is possible that the copyright was restored by URAA. No notice of intent to enforce was filed with the US Copyright Office. In 2000, a restored version based on the long lost original 35 millimeter negative was released on DVD by Milestone Films. As of 2015, a 2K restoration by Relato Pictures is playing in DCP format in various North American cities. A 4K restoration of the film was released by Criterion Collection on September 19th, 2023. Awesome flick, highly recommended. Check it out. And there's no oh, it's a Studio Canal trailer. Never mind. Title 1962, not rated. 1 hour 59 minutes. It's a whopping 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. 27,000 ratings. So it's not an obscure film, but it's certainly among those who know about it. Original title Le Procès. That it gets a pretty high average rating on IMDb. An unassuming office worker is arrested and he stands trial, but he's never made aware of his charges. All right, here's a somewhat less flattering review on IMDb. The title of the review is on IMDb is overwhelmingly confusing but magnificently composed. Dr. Q Shadow Reviews gives it a 6 out of 10, which is below the average rating and below my rating. I found a lot to adore in the trial, but just as much to furrow my brow over. The cinematography is stunning, full of visual metaphor and gorgeous composition. It is unyielding show of movie making expertise. Wells plays up the bleak no tomorrow nature of the exterior scenes, the structured chaos of the workplace, and the hedonistic excess exhibited by the various stages of the trial itself, each to great effect. The story, though, feels too flighty and nebulous for my taste. It should come as no surprise, being a translation of a Kafka novel, that the entire picture often feels surreal and confusing. We like that on this channel. That's perfect. It continuously floats and sputters just beyond the grasp of understanding, like a moth avoid delicately avoiding a set of flailing hands. The premise may have been established nicely during the slightly more straightforward opening scenes, but as the duration grows, it becomes too ambitiously ambiguous for its own good. We like ambitious and ambiguous films. The ending is just gigantic explosion, and we don't see the after effects. All right. More like this, the lady from Shanghai, Chimes at Midnight, Touch of Evil, and Othello. I think I have Othello on my list coming up pretty soon. Othello is number 20 on my list. So I think I've either reviewed all of these or they're on my list. Let's see. I don't know. I'll have to revisit the more like this section on IMDb. In May '62, while filming, Jeanne Moreau suffered a slight nervous breakdown due to the stifling atmosphere of the film. I can see that. All right, Joseph K. wakes up in the morning. Joseph K. finds the police in his room. They tell him that he is on trial, but nobody tells him what he is accused of in order to find out about the reason of this accusation and to protest his innocence. He tries to look beyond the facade of the judicial system, but since this remains fruitless, there seems to be no chance for him to escape from the Kafkaesque nightmare. That's from Jorn writes at informatic.rwth-achen.de. I guess that's in Denmark. A Dutch storyline translated in English. All right. Kay follows Hilda being carried out of the trial room hall by the law student. He hastily grabs and throws on his suit jacket. In the succeeding scenes, the jacket's buttons, which are buttons, change. The jacket's buttons, which are button change. All right. The narrator is quoted as saying, here we go. Before the law, there stands a guard. Comes from the countries. He's been taught that the law was to be accessible to every man. Do not attempt to enter without my permission, says the guard. I am very powerful, yet I'm the least of all the guards. From hall to hall, door to door, each guard is more powerful than the last. By the guard's permission, the man sits by the side of the door, and there he waits. For years he waits. Everything he has, he gives away in the hope of bribing the guard, who never fails to say to him, I take what you give me only so that you will not feel that you left something undone. Keeping his watch during the long years, the man has come to know even the fleas on the guard's fur collar. Growing childish in old age, he begs the fleas to persuade the guard to change his mind and allow him to enter. His sight was dimmed, but in the darkness he perceives a radiance streaming immortality from the door of the law. And now, before he dies, all he's experienced condenses into one question, a question he never asked. He beckons the guard, says the guard, You are insatiable. What is it now? Says the man. Every man strives to attain the law. How is it then that in all these years no one else has ever come here seeking admittance? His hearing has failed, so the guard yells into his ear, Nobody else but you could have ever obtained admittance. No one else could enter this door. This door was intended only for you, and now I'm going to close it. This tale is told during the story called The Trial. It has been said that the logic of this story is the logic of a dream, a nightmare. So there you have it, the logic of the trial. The end credits, The Atom Man, 1963. Soundtracks, Audio di Abbonani, interprété par André Girard as A. Girard, et orchestré de l'Association